Hello, welcome to another ep of Cappy Hour. Thanks for being here. I so appreciate it. Today we're going to talk about something that excites me greatly, which is my journey to a pain-free period, which has been a big one, a long one, and one that I'm really excited to be on. But I did just experience my first pain-free period last month, and I thought, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I have got a feeling that that's how it's going to be from here on in. So I thought I'd kind of share what I'd done in the process to hopefully help you guys. Evidently, we all have different bodies and different things that we're holding on to, different weaknesses and strengths and things like that. So what works for me won't necessarily work for you, but I do notice a lot of similarities across the board in women. So I thought, why not take it away and share what I've found, share the little things that have worked. So what's been cool with my period is that gradually it's just gotten better over time until the pain just completely left. But I'd say on a mental level, things have gotten pretty incredible. I found it quite wild when I Googled how to get a pain-free period out of curiosity. I just wanted to see what was going on online and to see what was getting pushed. And so I Googled how to get a pain-free period, and the answers were paracetamol, anti-inflammatories, and exercise, which is so random and niche. It basically just said get on birth control, get surgery, hysterectomy, IUDs, and injections. And I was just like, hello, Band-Aid. Take from this what you will. Again, I'm not a doc. So it's said that the emotional link to PMS is a rejection of the feminine process, which I find quite interesting across the board in women from the age of, say, 15 to 30. I feel like that is such a huge time in terms of like coming into self, accepting life and accepting the ups and downs, and basically being on that journey of self-love and acceptance is a big one. So I find that that emotional link of rejecting the feminine process is pretty bang on. So it is hard to accept a 30-day cycle when there are so many hormonal changes that feel beyond our control. But the truth is, I think a lot of us have the power to have a really energizing period all month long. I think what we've been fed is completely untrue and a bid to not trust our bodies. I'm under the impression that the mental space completely impacts the physical body. So if that is not something that you resonate with, I don't think this podcast will be for you. But if you do believe in the mind-body connection, then this could well offer some interesting little tips. I also want to start by saying that the journey of getting your period flowing ideally is definitely a journey of mind, body, and soul, and getting the three as in harmony as possible. The journey of getting your hormones to sing the way they want to sing is a big one, and one that requires a lot of dedication. I think it's one that takes, in ways, quite a bit of sacrifice, and it's one that also needs a bit of freedom to move. If you have the resources to create your life the way you want it to look, I think that's optimal for getting your period working for you. Because if you're living a super fast-paced lifestyle and you don't have autonomy over your life and your body, it can be tricky because it means that you're not really allowed that rest when you need that rest. I value lifestyle over anything else because I like to have the time to like do all the things I want to do and also rest, and just to balance all the ups and downs of life and just to have space and room to do that. So I know that everyone's not necessarily going to have that, but I do believe that we all have the power to have that if that's what we do desire. So that's where I'm speaking from. I've noticed a lot of my friends saying, when they have a really heavy period that's causing emotional turbulence or physical pain, I've heard a lot of them say, yep, it's just the way it is and things like that. And I've noticed myself just kind of lock up, and yeah, it bothers me because it really isn't the way it is. And the thing is, if we are living in tune with our cycles, we should well be pretty energized across the board. Speaking for myself here, I have in the past neglected to listen to the little whispers of my body. So I think gradually over time, the pain just got worse and worse and worse. I didn't want to be taking any sort of pain meds. And I said to myself, I want to have at least 3 years of pain-free periods before having a baby. Not that I'm in the market for a baby yet, but I have this theory that I absolutely completely made up in my mind, and it's that the healthier your periods are, the healthier your pregnancy will be. So I think the coolest way to learn in life is to use yourself as a study, and then to see if you can notice certain correlations in yourself, in others, and then if those people are interested in opening up to an idea that's worked for you, then offering said information that has helped you. I think you probably will have gathered that I'm not a huge Western medicine gal. Definitely a time and a place for it, and super grateful for it. But yeah, I try my very best to live a life that is a little bit more holistic and green. I Googled PMS, was just trying to get a bit of a gauge of what it says online, and yeah, it says PMS is completely normal and the cause of it is unknown. I find that just to be such an insane cop out, because Western medicine is a big money making scandal. So I think with all of these, the pills and the IUDs and all these things, they're consistently making pennies off that. It's like, why would they find a cure for PMS? But I believe that PMS is a mix of emotional causes, it's a mix of physical causes, and it's a mix of just how you decide to create your life. So I've written a few tips out on what I've done over the course of these last few years of trying to get my hormones just skipping along on their merry way. The idea was really just to be able to have a month-long cycle that wouldn't have all these ups and downs and twists and turns and things like that. I didn't think that that felt like a normal kind of process. I don't think the bodies are actually meant to be so drastically high and low. So my first tip is to tailor a life to suit your needs and to suit what you value the most. I've said it before, but yeah, I value lifestyle the most. So I'm lucky enough to be able to live fully with my cycle, and I don't neglect that, because if I do neglect that, that means that I don't get to show up as the version of myself that I want to show up as. Fixing relationship with food was a really huge one for me, and then seeing what worked, seeing what didn't, but then getting to a stage where there's particular, I wouldn't call them diets, but ways of life that promote just a healthy brain, basically. My diet is predominantly a protein, fat, and carb vibe, so much higher on the proteins and the fats, and then a little side of carb where I see fit. This has been a really big discovery, I'd say, in the hormone world over the past couple of years. Something that's being shared a lot in terms of keeping our blood sugar levels steady, because the more spikes there are, the more it affects what's going on up here. Jumping on this diet, and again, we all have different constitutions and different things that sit better in our body, but it is such a journey of seeing what works and seeing what doesn't. But if you're curious about trying a diet that I think pacifies a lot of crap in the body, I think the diet across the board would work for quite a lot of people. Just good quality meats and vegetables, and keeping the seed oils away. Listening to your body and listening to its signs, because it will send you little signs. It's just about noticing what they're trying to tell you. I'm obviously not a hormone specialist or a naturopath. Everything that I'm about to say is completely personal study, but I'll say this as a hormones for dummies. The period is basically made up of 4 cycles, and each cycle will generally bring with it a different kind of energy depending on the choices that you're making throughout the month. So the first cycle is your period, second cycle is the follicular, third ovulation, and fourth luteal. The first cycle, which is your period, is definitely more of an introverted, introspective time, and I'd say the best time to be spending more time alone and spending more time in that softness and in that flow, nourishing the body. And then I think for exercise, in that phase, it's good to just do more of a light sort of workout, light stretching, a yoga if you can, some walking and things like that, because the body's doing a lot in that phase. Yeah, it'll tell you what it does need, but I'd say rest at this time is the best. Allow for those naps big time. And then the second phase is the follicular, where you'll generally feel a little bit more outward. You're slowly coming out of that introverted period phase. So from there, you can kind of just start socializing more and start like working more on projects and things like that, because it's such an energetic thing as well. And ovulation is probably when you'll feel at your peak. I reckon you're most sexiest, and that's probably the best time to be like fasting and doing like high intensity exercises and doing your most socializing. Then that's like, yeah, that's when you peak, come out of your shell, and you're your most attractive. So you can pretty much just send it here. And then the fourth phase is the luteal, which is generally the phase I think that we resist the most, which is the one before the period, around about 10 days, where you'll notice a shift. It's just like more cravings and more just like emotional kind of just like ups and downs. If you can dedicate the time to living with your cycle, there's actually an extreme amount of beauty in each cycle if you're listening. So yeah, again, the luteal will be when you're starting to go back into that more introspective and soft time. So it's interestingly enough almost a bit of a 50-50 split. And obviously we're not being like live by this like die hard, like if I have my period I don't see anyone. It's not as extreme as that. But I think if you're at the beginning stages of really not understanding why you're experiencing such highs and lows across the month, I think this is a good little gauge for like introverted time and extroverted time. That's what I like to look at it like. 3 years ago or something like that, I noticed that my moods like leading up to my period were really quite harsh. I was having quite a bit of trouble just surrendering to the emotional ups and downs. And then I read about a thing called PMDD, which is basically a label for the low you experience before your period. I think the period is always trying to teach you something, which is a beautiful sentiment, I believe. And something that I've been taking into my period for the last year is, what's it trying to teach you? So I do really think the pain is a teacher. I do really think that each period is an opportunity to let go of something. Every time now when I go into that time of the month, I like to just sit down and really think about what is it that I'm letting go of. So I like to now look at it like that. What am I trying to let go of? Because you really are, in a crazy way, we're basically shedding a baby. Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy to think that the body undergoes such a process, and it'd be kind of silly to think that we're not letting go of something. Looking at it like that was a really cool thing. What am I trying to let go of? Sometimes it's, over the year, it's been a limiting belief around money, something that consistently resurfaces, or maybe it's a relationship that's no longer serving, letting go of that person, letting go of that person, or maybe it's a negative self-talk or something about that. I want to let go of that. I want to let go of that. And I find that the more you're letting go and the more intention you're putting into it, the closer it can get you to having a pain-free period. Some of the supplements I take which have really helped are a primal energy liver supplement. So that's basically like an iron, which we all definitely need. I think the food that is being sold at Woolies doesn't have the nutrients we need, and even the food from the soil. Our soil is rich, but it could be richer. So I think a liver support, a zinc, the biggest one, a magnesium is huge, because our bodies are contracting. We're having cramps. Like even if it's like a muscle cramp, we take magnesium. Think about how much cramping goes on in the belly and how much that magnesium just soothes. So my process is just having a mag every day, and then 10 days in the lead up to period having doubling up on the mag. And I also got a magnesium cream, and I've been massaging that into my feet, which has been so just lovely. The whole thing gets to be a nurturing self-care practice. So I recommend that. And over the last year, I've been giving so much love to my belly in the way of whispering soft little love notes to it, and mostly just putting my hands on my belly and just reminding it that I love it, because this is the spot in my body that I've been the most mean to over the years. And I will say this, that I think across the board, a lot of women don't like that, the pouch, we'll call it. So if we all loved our little bellies a lot more, we'd all reap a lot more benefits. There are a lot of studies at the moment coming out about tampons and them being laced with heavy metals, which is a strong no from me. So I have been rocking the period undies for a while now, because I think that's an energy flow. It wants to come out. It doesn't want to be blocked up. Period undies just from Woolies. Rack them if you need. Don't tell mum. It's like pick and choose your poisons, but it looks like the Tom ones are okay. Again, beginning stages of testing. So I've decided to step away from them completely, which is not the handiest thing. I just don't want to add any more metals that I'm already exposed to. I'm also doing acupuncture every 2 weeks, which is a bit of an expense. I'm lucky enough to trade for photos, so it's not that heavy, but I have an amazing acupuncturist who meets my body every 2 weeks and just sees where it could use a little bit of support, because gosh, we hold so much in our bodies, whether it's something that we've created in the mind or just like something physical that's popping up. It's like we have to hold on to it somewhere. The acupuncture has really helped with my skin, I do believe. I think if you're trying to work out where it is that your hormones are struggling, seeing which one's up, which one's down, your body will also send you signals. If you've got a short period, it can mean this. If you've got a long period, it can mean that. If you get tender titties, it can mean this. So definitely best to go see a naturopath. I'm going to link my favorite one below. She's doing really cheap consultations as well, and she really knows her shit and she walks the walk. So if you're interested in that, click below, but she'll be able to help or to guide you. I think our bodies are actually a lot smarter than we give them credit for. So the cycles will change so much over the months depending on how much stress there is in your life and how much calm there is in your life. And I think it's really important that we implement a lot more calm into our lives, because gosh, it's fast paced and there's a lot to think about and a lot to be doing and doing and doing. And I think if you look back, we're actually probably meant to just pick grapes and like be mothers all together. So obviously evolution is here and we need to bring home the bread, and bringing home the bread feels good, so we must adapt. But if you're really feeling like, gosh, I want my period to be my friend, I don't want it to be something that pisses me off all month long, then these tips might help. I think something that's not talked about in the process of healing the hormones is actually gut health, which is interesting, because you wouldn't think, oh, my gut will affect my hormones, but really everything kind of starts in the gut. So healing any sort of anger and bitterness, which is where it sits in the gut, that's the emotional link. Anger and resentment sits in the gut. Healing that is easier said than done, but it's a huge one in the process of that, which has been such a blessing when I go to acupuncture. It's a bit of a blend of therapy and acupuncture, getting to talk about certain things. I've spoken about this a lot, but I feel like the thing that I revert back to is generally resentment, not speaking my truth. Holding that in the gut has been just such a heavy weight to bear for me. So now when I'm noticing that I'm falling into that resentment, it's speaking things out loud so that they don't stew up here. It's funny, I'm making it seem like such a mountain to climb, but the thing is, it actually is a bit of a mountain to climb, because if you live a fast-paced lifestyle, like a lot of us do, because doing feels so good and being busy feels so good, then it means that the faster you live like that, the further away you do get from having a period that's going to work for you. It's very tricky business. So my biggest tips, I'm just going to go through like 10 things that I did, and then if any of them jump out at you, maybe you could see if you want to further ponder. So my first one was my relationship with food. Yeah, healing that's such a huge one, but I feel like if you've got that in check, then it's a slingshot into a cool place. The second tip was my relationship with exercise. So finding exercise that actually made me feel happy and excited and invigorated to partake in. The third one was probably one of the biggest hurdles of my life, which is reconciling the anger and resentment towards my parents. That's been such a huge one. So if you notice that at all, anger and resentment sits in the gut, which is such a link to the brain, which is such a link to the hormones. And yeah, I recommend spending some time reconciling that within yourself, because healthy gut, healthy fucking life. So it's so cool. That God, that excites me. Yeah, number 4 is a big one, which is healing the gut. That takes quite a bit of time, but I feel that when your gut is healthy, it means happy brain and probably also happier hormones. Number 5 is letting go of any emotional turmoil, because I believe that manifests as physical pain. So each month having a bit of a letting go ritual, and just like the full moon, you let go on the full moon, and on the new moon, you bring in. I think that's a really cool and beautiful, nurturing practice to have. Number 6, and these are quite bougie ones: good water, acupuncture every 2 weeks, and yoga. I don't talk about how monumental yoga has been in my journey in life, but I highly recommend strengthening the body to strengthen the mind, because the stronger the mind, the more will you have to exercise these disciplines every day to then live a fruitier life in the long term. Number 7 is balancing the solitude and the connection. So you don't have to be like a full Nazi with stuff like this, but just noticing when you're feeling maybe a bit introspective, or maybe when there's signs that are pointing you to introversion, and then noticing when you're feeling more extroverted, and just being a little bit, maybe being kind with yourself in the process, but also being like, yeah, maybe I could use a little night to myself. And it's beautiful to do that for you. And then again, not discounting how important connection is. So taking that time to go outdoors and see your friends and gallivant and camp and do all the good shit when the timing is right. Number 8, this is gonna get me punched in the face, but minimize sugar, full stop. Like, sugar, I swear, is just one of those little secret. Well, it's becoming more and more known how not great sugar is. If you can get yourself to a place where you're not craving sugar, easier said than done, but through all these little mini practices, you'll crave sugar less, I find. Yeah, this is more like on the processed sugar front, but also sugar is sugar. It does do quite a bit of spiking. So if you can just kind of watch your sugar intake, I do think that that could really help. It has helped me. Number 9 is the supplements. The Primal Energy liver tablets, that boosts the iron. I think we all need a little bit of iron help, and even B12. And then zinc is great, magnesium also, and the omega-3s, which is, I'm only just starting the omega-3, so we'll see what happens. Number 10, very bougie, but I eat fully organic. It's really not that expensive, and I think because I don't spend anywhere else other than probably the whip, I like the idea of choosing where it is that you do blowout. So I'll call my blowouts my car and food and good water. But I think because I don't party and do things like that, I can definitely spare that. And some other really important tips and tricks are, I think sleep kind of comes before everything. Sleep is a quick way to recharge. I think we've all probably had one of those overwhelming days where you fall into a nap and then you kind of just wake up feeling anew. Sometimes for months on end, you feel like you need to sleep for way longer. Just listening to that, because if you do go through emotionally taxing times, sometimes you just need a little bit more TLC for a little bit longer. So listening to that, not resisting that, just having a nap. I think one of the most underrated kind of tips and tools and tricks is to tune in more to that feminine kind of flow. It's like such a little guiding force, and something that I lean on most days, really, to just tune into how I feel and what it is that I might need, and how could I potentially fill my basket up a little bit more. So tuning into that over the course of the month is a really beautiful thing. I think nature is such a recharging force. So spending time in the elements is always really good. I think the elements are really cool for that. So fire, if you want to burn it all down, and air's cool. Just brings me back into presence when I feel the air on my skin. I love it for that. And then water to process the emotions. I like to see it visually like that. They come, they go, they flow just like water does. And earth, grounding. So sitting on the earth and using that as a recharge. There's so many cool little studies coming up at the moment of just the babies just lying on the ground, just like when they're tired, they just lie on the ground, and they've been realizing that that's nature doing the work. So I thought that was really cool, and I very often just go to rock pools and just lie on the ground and just use that as a recharge. So one that I recommend to everyone, really, to be honest. I just wanted to do this episode just as a reminder that it's not, I'm going to have period pains for the rest of my life. I'm going to have emotional turmoil and it's going to be a roller coaster forever. It's really not like that, but it just demands quite a bit of will and quite a lot of flow, which is really cool. But your body will tell you, it'll send you the signals. It's just about being clear enough to receive them. But yeah, I just want everyone to have good periods. I want everyone to be happy all month long, but that's a big wish. So if we can all do little bits and bobs for our bodies like that to support them even more, I think we can all live even more fruity. I truly believe that the mental space impacts the physical body. So I got a little bit curious because I've noticed such a rise in endo and PCOS over the years in friends and talked about a lot more. I got a little bit curious about the emotional link to endo, and it's said to be insecurity, disappointment, and frustration, which feels like a pretty common theme across the board from your late teens to like your 30s, navigating all this change and all this like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my life, and navigating relationships. And I feel like that's quite an interesting link, and take from it what you will, but I go straight to more self-love, more self-care, more acceptance of self for a healthier life. I mean, it can't really hurt to practice more self care. It can't really hurt to be more in tune with your body. It can't really hurt to eat less sugar. Can't really hurt to support your body with supplements and with light exercise here and big hit sessions there. They're all little tips and tricks that could potentially help. And I've come from a place of having insane cystic acne and just hectic thoughts, and it just is crazy to be at a place where things are operating uh, in a beautiful way, in a way that I have never really known before. So I'm excited to share more as I go through the process. But thank you so much for listening in. Lovely to have this little platform to share my insights and to share a little bit more about what has worked for me and potentially might work for you, I hope.